Magna Roma. Magna Roma by Archona Games is like a swan made out of onion. It comes towards you, gliding, looking menacingly at you, and underneath its legs are going like that. But then you realise if you look closer that there's a multitude of different layers going on as well as the legs. And that's how I would describe Magna Roma. It's kind of a game that has it's kind of hidden depths. And it sneaks up on you. It's a Euro, yeah, I mean it's a Euro. This is all about points and point tracks. But it's how you get there and the randomness that how you get there. Which kind of makes it kind of easy to access and also very thinky at the same time, which is a kind of a strange sentence to say. But the thing that always comes up about Euros is a lack of kind of interactivity, and there is a layer of lack of interactivity when it comes to Magna Roma. But the most important thing is that all levels around this kind of city that you're building, and one of the biggest points of interactivity is the actual selection of the tiles itself. And I really, really like the fact that once you select your tile and you slot it into the city, then you're restricted into where you can move next. You can only move up to 2 spaces. And sometimes that means you've got to do the best with what you've got, and other times it means you're looking around at what everybody else is doing. You're deciding whether or not you're going to make life difficult for them. Then once you've got your titles, and this is genius, see this little kind of half symbol thing that's going on? I really like that. I really, really like that. You know, and I can see why it could be a draw to the actual game itself. And I really appreciate how Archona have just left the kind of the symbology kind of blank. They've not put anything on it at all. So in a completed city, the symbols kind of really, really stand out, and you can almost see the map of your endeavours and what you played as you kind of go. And I kind of really, really like that. And you're kind of very hesitant on whether or not something like that's going to work until you start playing. And then you realise you've got monies and shields and god and favours for gods and kind of population and everything, and it all kind of looks and makes perfect sense as you kind of look on the city that you've got. And then of course you're moving from your city, which is essentially is actually building physical resources for you then to then push out into the world in the form of the kind of the population track, or the favour the gods track, or the market track, or the military track. And then you've also got to get the monuments as well. So it's a possibility that while you're playing Magna Roma, you might even forget the several things that exist, but they all have a bearing on how things go. Your market combined with your your general city track will decide a huge multiplier of points, which will come at the end of the game, as well as your ability to swap your resources. Your favour of the gods probably has one of the most powerful kind of mechanics in the entire game, is that by gaining a favour of the gods, you can place it back on a city tile that you've gained the resources from before, and you can have those resources kind of all over again. But on the other side of it, if you don't collect the favours if you don't use the favours that you collect, at the end of the game, as you climb up the favour track, you can eventually trade these favours into victory points themselves. So it's a kind of like, will I, won't I? Will I kind of hold off, or will I kind of capitalise on what I've had just now? The military track's probably the most interesting one, in the fact that that is the main thing that's going to change on every single game, but it's also going to change how you approach the entire building of your city, because yes, your military track will climb, and then you'll reduce your military might as you kind of go ahead and invade other territories. But then based on these territories, that will define where the bonus points are coming in. So for instance, you've got bonus points for having kind of separate districts. And based on where you are on the track, that'll decide whether you get 1, 2 or 3 bonus points per separate district. So unlike kind of normal tile laying games where there's almost like a reward for piling everything together, you have to break that away from your brain and separate everything up. So you have to keep your red districts small, away from small purple districts, away from small urban districts. Because all of a sudden you're looking at these cards and realising you have to do that if you're wanting to maximise your points kind of going forward. There's all these little things that you have to kind of keep a track on all at once. It's quite easy sometimes to forget halfway through a game something that you're potentially missing. I think the only one that I was incredibly guilty of forgetting, unless I actively reminded myself, because it isn't part of the general reward track, was the monuments. Coins, yes, you gather coins and they'll sit there and it's like, money, brilliant, I'll have that. And then you forget you can actually go ahead and you can buy monuments that you can then place in your cities, put up with workers and get yourself some additional victory points. They have also their own additional little kind of victory conditions on there to get you even more victory points as well. So again, you're kind of mixing everything up in your head. So it has these layers, and it has you thinking, and all the while you can actually see the progress of your story as you go, which is a wonderful little thing, and see how you go. And everything's restricted into a 5x5 grid. So sometimes you're placing tiles and you can't. The only reason you've taken a tile in the first place because you know if they had that tile, then they were going to really do kind of well and push themselves up the military tract. It's incredibly easy to learn. That's your aide de memoir. It's like a simple kind of, it's gone. Card. It's one card that reminds you pretty much of everything that you need to learn about the game. And then the strategy that involved is kind of like layers down, which I kind of appreciate. So I hope this gives you a taste of what you can expect. I'm not a big fan of Euros. I can generally find them quite dry. But what I find is like, while other people in the pandemic have decided to get themselves a dog or take up baking, I've decided that number crunching and puzzle solving is a little bit way. And this is kind of like a puzzle that you have to solve. And the reason for that is because the market changes and the military changes, which is kind of quite cool, which I like a lot. And the monuments change. So and the main board itself changes. So this is a game in terms of replayability, has a lot of that to offer. You'll grab the whole pot. The brilliance behind this is maybe the basics are there to basically learn the game. It's very easy. To master the game, kind of 4 or 5 games in, once everybody's had a shot at the table, they're going to be, people are going to be playing strategies that are going to just be throwing you a bit. And then you realise that they're going for that extra star to get the multiplier of the victory points. So all in all, Magna Roma is kind of like a medium-y type weight game, which means it needs you to think straight from the off. You can't kind of settle in. It looks striking on the table. It's very, very easy to understand. It's very language independent as well. The iconography is good, it's straightforward, it makes kind of sense. Doesn't spend too long on the table either. It does take up a reasonable amount of table space, so there is that. So that's Magna Roma from Archona Games. My name's Richard, this is We're Not Wizards. Thank you for watching. If you like what you've watched, drop us a subscription if you haven't subscribed, or leave us a like if you have subscribed. But also leave us a like if you haven't subscribed. But also consider leaving a comment if you've either have or haven't subscribed or not subscribed or liked or not liked. I'm making this very, very complicated for no reason whatsoever. But until the next time, stay safe, roll sixes, and make yourself A little Roman road. There you go. Ecce Romani.